Welcome to Week Question and Learn. This is Tom Pysz, and we're having a very special program today. Today we have Greg Coleman, and Greg is the president of the Erie SeaWolves, a AA affiliate of the Detroit Tigers. And Greg, you've been doing this since 2011. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been a decade, but it's been a blink of the eye here in Erie. It's amazing how quickly it goes.
First of all, how did you end up at the Erie SeaWolves? Let's start with that if we could.
Yeah, sure. Well, by the time I came to Erie, I had already had a pretty lengthy career in minor league baseball. I had worked for affiliates in Florida, California, New Jersey, and Kentucky, and the opportunity opened up in Erie, and it just was a good fit for me personally. It was a good fit for my family. There's a lot of great things about the Erie community, and a lot of community assets and things that were just right for us, and so it made it really attractive to move here. And lo and behold, we've been here a decade, and so I guess that interpretation was correct. So
for the career minded, how the heck did you start off in this type of business, so to speak? How did you get started, if I could ask?
Well, I think it was interesting. I was in college, and I was sort of thrust into running a summer baseball league because someone had stepped down, and I stepped up to volunteer. And little did I know that by the time I graduated from college, I had already had the core of what I needed from a skill set, whether that be scheduling and working with suppliers and sponsors and trying to keep a lot of constituents happy.
We know what that's like, right?
So by the time I had done that, I had sort of already had 2 years under my belt, and I got out of college. I went to the College of New Jersey in central New Jersey.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I did that, and came out, and I worked in banking for a short time, and that just wasn't my cup of tea. And so I decided at that point I could do anything that I wanted to do. What did I want to do? And I thought back to those summers of running the summer league, and I thought, boy, if I could do this for a living, I think I'd be pretty happy doing it. And so it led me to an opportunity in Daytona Beach, Florida, and they liked the experience I had during my college years, and the rest is history.
How does this town like Erie, Pennsylvania, get a baseball team?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's more difficult today than it was probably 25 plus years ago when the SeaWolves started. And actually, I'll give a quick history on the SeaWolves.
Yes.
We started at a level that was called short season baseball, and they played from mid-June through Labor Day. And at the time we started, we were affiliated with the Pittsburgh Pirates, so just up the road, very natural affiliation. And frankly, that's where we got our name. SeaWolves is slang for pirates.
Good.
So,
yes, of course.
And so we had some success here as an organization, and after a couple of years, Major League Baseball expanded, and there was an opportunity to move up to the level that we're currently at, which is called AA. And so AA is really 2 steps away from the big leagues. You go from AA to AAA, and then AAA to the majors. Usually, players go about 1 level per year if they stay on track. And so usually our players are playing for the Detroit Tigers within about 2 years. So when we went up to AA, we went with basically the open available team, which was at the time the Anaheim Angels. Stayed with them for 2 years, and then when a more regionally logical team opened up in the Detroit Tigers, we've been partnering with them ever since. So that partnership goes from 2001 to today. So it's been a great partnership, but over the years things have changed, and the governing document that basically establishes the relationship between Major League Baseball and minor league baseball concluded following the 2019 going into the 2020 kind of calendar year, and they basically tore the whole thing up and started over again, and which was for folks that kind of came up in the business on the same timeline as me. For 30 years, we basically had Pysz. It was, you might have made minor adjustments here or there, but there weren't any major changes to the number of teams. Teams might move from time to time if there's a situation where a facility fell into disrepair or something along those lines. But for the most part, the number of teams still existed. Well, one of the major changes was that they eliminated the level of baseball that we started at. They eliminated short season baseball entirely, and so because of that, you had 40 plus cities that had Major League affiliated baseball that when we started this year no longer had an affiliation and had to figure out a way to make it on their own, whether that was as an independent baseball team or whether that was doing something entirely different, not hosting baseball at all. So it is it's much harder now. You have to have a supportive community. You have to have a lease for a facility that meets Major League Baseball standards, and those are higher today than they were last year, and they'll be even higher in about 5 years. But fortunately, the SeaWolves, the Erie community, the Erie Convention Center Authority, everybody's done their part, and we are now at the head of the list in terms of facilities that meet standards, and we're very proud of that.
Oh, absolutely, and I think that's definitely a reflection of how the community thinks about the Erie SeaWolves. Now, going back, talk a little bit about the history of the ownership of the team.
The team started under a gentleman named Alan Levin. And Alan Levin, he had different holdings in the entertainment world, and had the SeaWolves. Also had a team in Mahoning Valley, so Niles, Ohio. Had a team in South Bend, and so he did it for several years, and then around 2003-ish, sold off to a group called Mandalay Baseball Properties. And Mandalay, if the name sounds a little bit familiar, it's not because of the casino, it's not because of that, but it's because Mandalay is a motion picture company, and they had kind of their core business of motion pictures, but also brought that sort of storytelling philosophy over to minor league baseball, and had some of the most successful minor league teams, most notably the Dayton Dragons, which is a team that has sold out every game since its inception. So I mean, the longest professional sports sellout streak in the United States, more so than any NBA team or Major League Baseball team on down the line. So very, very successful. So our company, our team, fell into their ownership from then until around 2015, when that particular entity decided to dissolve. It was they basically were going to return the investments to the shareholders, and there was just going to be no more Mandalay. And so So at that point, our current owner, Fernando Aguirre, who is the former CEO and chairman of Chiquita Brands, was ready to break into the minor league baseball business, and he acquired the SeaWolves after doing some due diligence, and it has been a great fit for our team, and has been able to help us get to the next level to where we want to go. He is just the American dream from a story standpoint. He was born and raised in Mexico. His father was involved in baseball, and so he enjoyed that as a child, and he set a goal that he wanted to come to the United States to play collegiately, which he did. And he decided he wanted to go someplace where he was going to be forced to speak English. He didn't take an assignment to Florida or Texas or something along those lines where he could play baseball and then also sort of rely on his Spanish language. He went and he ended up playing in Illinois, and really had to work on his English there, and so it was a great start for him. And he had thought about doing baseball maybe professionally, had a couple of tryouts, that type of thing, but ultimately when he was in college, had an opportunity to hook up with Procter & Gamble, and he did about 23 years there, and built a nice career, lived in a lot of countries, and then eventually caught the eye of the folks over at Chiquita, and then he did several more years there. So very, very established, very astute gentleman, and I've been just honored to have the opportunity to work with him, because even after me having 20 some years in the business, he's taught me a lot. I think the thing that he has really brought to us is the numbers. And when you work for a company like Procter and Gamble or Chiquita, you really heavily rely on analytics. And it's funny because for as much as analytics has become a dominant theme on the field in baseball, it really hasn't had the same effect off the field in the minors. The minors were still very much run like individual small business owners, and they are small businesses. But because of that setup, you had at the time 160 teams. There's now 120. You had them sort of all on an island, and other than a couple of groups that may have had 4 or 5 teams, you had a lot of teams that were there to sort of fend for themselves. So even though teams in the minors often share best practices, they don't often share numbers. And so to be able to take that background from Procter and Gamble and look at the business through a different lens and really truly determine, what should we be doing, what shouldn't we be doing, what is the value of something, and I think that was an eye opener, because I think if you went and talked to a number of other teams, they're nowhere near as advanced on that front as we are today, and they're still getting there. I think it's going to get there in the next couple of years, but fortunately, with his background, we're on the front end of it.
I'm sure he truly cares about the SeaWolves because things are going well. Now, how did obviously, this is not a good question, maybe an obvious question, but how did the pandemic affect you?
Well, I think we're in very good company. I think there are a lot of folks who have had a tough time. I think, particularly in the entertainment business. I mean, not just sports teams, but when you talk about folks like the live venues, your performing art centers, your museums, any place that people gather, really got hit hard. Now, I'll say, I think on the front end, minor league baseball was probably hit as hard as anybody. The way our calendar runs is that all of the money that comes in largely comes in between in the second and third quarters of the year. It comes in from April through about Labor Day, but you still have off-season expenses, and a lot of the work that you do and a lot of the expenses that you incur happen during those off-season months. So when the pandemic really kind of started shutting things down in March of 2020, minor league teams were pretty much at their max spend. They had already purchased their bobbleheads and contracted their fireworks, and fulfilled a number of their sponsorship agreements, and they had spent the lion's share of the money they were going to spend, and then the revenue never came.
Yeah, so it's like a credit card, so to speak. This is not easily a cash business.
No, it was a very, very tricky situation where most minor league teams went anywhere from 18 to 19 months without meaningful revenue, and they found ways to make ends meet. Some teams did, if they were in certain locations, did special events. I could tell you in Erie, we ran a series of Saturday night movies on the big screen.
Yep.
We were limited to 250 people, so it wasn't exactly like there was a huge revenue windfall there, but all those little things help to kind of get through. Certainly some of the federal programs that were created for small businesses and live event venues, those things all have helped. But we are still trying to get our footing to normal. As we started the 2021 baseball season, teams were limited to capacity. Depending on where you were, some places had to have proof of vaccination. We were at 25% capacity as we were approaching opening day. We didn't get into full capacity until June, and so. But I will tell you that we've been very, very pleased with the bounce back since we could get to full capacity. There are a lot of folks who have made it a point to say, if I went to 1 or 2 games in the past, I'm going to go to 3 or 4 games now, and so really for us, being without revenue for a year and a half is not an optimal scenario. But I will tell you that our community has supported us, and by the time we get to the end of this season, we will have sold more individual tickets for this year than we did for 2019, and that that's saying something. Now, there are other segments of the
Yes.
business that are not performing as well, but the
Yes.
individual ticket buyer has said, I'm going to support this team, and they've done a tremendous job, and we couldn't be more thankful.
Now, peripheral businesses, are there peripheral businesses involved? And I think I know the answer in baseball, particularly relative to the Erie SeaWolves. A lot of folks depend on you, I think.
Yeah, for sure. When you talk about the businesses downtown, you've got a number of restaurants, you've got a number of bars, you've got a number of businesses that we buy things from. Whether that so the Seawolves are one business, but we also own the concessions company that operates
There
at
you go.
UPMC
Yeah.
Park.
There you go. Yeah.
And between the two companies, we are in an average year easily spending over $1 million locally with Erie area, Northwest Pennsylvania businesses, whether that is the hotels that we stay at, whether that is the buses that we take to road trips, the food that we buy from local purveyors. There are a lot of businesses that benefit from the Seawolves being here and playing games, and conversely, when we didn't have any games, there was a hole in our budget, but there was a hole in their budget too. So,
Absolutely.
but I think it's been great to be back. I noticed that one of the restaurants around the corner from us was ready to reopen for business right when we opened for baseball season. So that to me was a telltale sign that that they rely pretty heavily on us.
Well, it's a 7-figure economic influence, and probably more than that if you start drawing all the dotted lines relative to baseball in Erie.
Oh yeah, no, that number I threw out is not once you factor in multipliers or anything like that. That is just pure what we spend.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Now, let's go one step further. Not only are you an economic key to the community, so to speak, a cog in the wheel, so to speak, but you folks do a lot of outreach. You do a lot of community work. And I think sometimes people forget that you are contributing a lot in a lot of different ways. You're involved in different philanthropic efforts in the community. I think obviously your owner is a nonprofit. What type of events do you folks hold during the year?
Well, first I would start to say about what our philosophy is, and our philosophy is we try to say yes to everybody, and that is very difficult to do sometimes, especially after you haven't played.
You'll need a second or third employee. Yeah.
Especially when you haven't had a game for 18 months, but we. So I guess we have a 501c3 associated with the team called the SeaWolves Community Fund, and during the course of the calendar year, we will do different fundraisers for the SeaWolves Community Fund. Things that raise money out of the ballpark, whether those are jersey auctions or the small games of chance, 50-50, things like that, that help us raise money, so that when we do get requests from a youth baseball organization or an educational program, that we can support them in a way that makes sense. In some cases, that might be cutting a check to support a cause. In some cases, it might be committing our time. So the SeaWolves Community Fund is really kind of the umbrella. The key. I guess the most notable thing that we do with the SeaWolves Community Fund is the Chase Numata Scholarship. And the Chase Numata Scholarship, Chase Numata was a player for us in 2019. Unfortunately, he passed away during the 2019 season, and we wanted to keep his legacy and his memory alive, because he's just a wonderful young man and comes from a wonderful family, and so every year we give out scholarships to area high school baseball and softball players, and they range from $250 to $1,000, but we're able to help lighten that load of college for a few different folks every single year. So we do that. We certainly when we get requests from different organizations, like I said, we try to say yes whenever we can. We're heavily involved in the Miracle League of Erie County, which is a league for kids and adults with varying abilities.
Wonderful.
And so we volunteer time, raise money for them as well, and hopefully hopefully we're able to help them realize their vision of building a synthetic surface playing field, because you get summers in Erie, and sometimes it rains, and sometimes it rains heavily the day before you go out and play, and wheelchairs on dirt and grass don't necessarily don't work well. So we'd like to help them realize their vision as part of what we do. But we're out in the community as much as we can be, and this past year's been a little bit tough. Some of the things we do in terms of school programming, we've run fitness programs, we've run reading programs, educational initiatives, and a lot of that this year has had to be modified or postponed, and that's tough, because I think those schools appreciate what we do and what we bring to the table, and give them a different way to show that learning is important and a lifelong journey.
And you've worked with the Autism Society in the past, and Gloves for Kids, and many different events or outreach programs as that. So it sounds like you spend a good portion, let's say, of your time doing outreach for the SeaWolves.
Well, it's as simple as this. We believe that if we are good to the community, that the community will be good to us. And and that's we do it because it's the right thing, but we also do it because we think it's good business too. And so we're very proud of what we've done. In 2015, I believe it was, we were lucky enough to win a Commitment to Erie Award for our efforts that we had done. And there's a lot of things we've accomplished as an organization. We've won different promotional awards and making the playoffs and different things like that. But I'm not sure there's been anything that has been as appreciated as that award for us, the recognition from your peers in the community that you've made a difference.
You've already talked a little bit about what's going to happen with your league going into the future, relative to Major League Baseball. Where do you see all this in, say, 5 years? Is there going to be a huge change in the way you affiliate with the leagues, baseball, and the community? What do you think is going to be different, or is it going to be the same?
It's a really interesting question, because I know how things are going to play out from now through 2030. So all of the teams that are currently affiliated with Major League Baseball signed contracts that they call a professional development license, or a PDL. So all of the current teams have a PDL through the 2030 season. Now, teams have to do their part. They have to make sure that the facility continues to meet specifications. They have to be good partners to their major league team. But as long as they do what is expected under that license, then the teams have a team and a license to affiliate through 2030. Now, I think there are a lot of questions what happens after 2030, and I think those questions will start to be asked in the last 2 or 3 years of the agreement, because it's really tough to assume what would happen after 2030. Will there be a need for the same number of affiliated minor league teams, or will there be an interest in reducing the number? Will there be an interest in expanding the number? It's really tough to know. It's really tough to know, but the one thing we know is that the facility is going to have to continue to meet specifications, and it would be reasonable to assume that come 2030 there will be new specifications to meet. Now, those might not be overbearing specifications. It might be like right now, for instance, teams are responsible for having a certain lighting grade for the field, a certain number of foot candles in each area of the field, and by 2030, they may require all teams to have LED lighting or something along those lines.
Maybe by 2030, the camera technology will eliminate that need, hopefully, as a cost for you. There's a lot of interesting things happening on the picture-taking side, as you know.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the things that could change dramatically over these next few years, and probably get put into place around the time this contract's up, is they've got instant replay going on at the major league level. There definitely is a push to get the minor league product more television or broadcast ready, and so the majority of minor league teams already stream games in high definition, but they may do it with 3 or 4 cameras. It would not be surprising by the time you get to the end of this contract if teams are required to have 9 or 10 different cameras that also would potentially aid in instant replay. Now, who knows? Instant replay may never come to the minors, but they are experimenting with different technologies. They've started this year in the lowest levels, experimenting with robo-ump. I guess that's the way they would explain it.
Gosh,
Basically,
here we go.
automated
Yeah.
strike zone technology.
Yeah.
But they're doing it to test it, and it may never see the light of day at the higher levels. But they are using the minors as sort of their own R&D facility, and they can test rules and technologies that at some point in the future may come into play in the majors, or it just may always stay in the minors. It's tough to know, but technology is definitely going to play an increased role as we move forward.
I'm going to make a prediction that the technology will outrun your deadline. In other words, it'll be here before you have to have it. That's my prediction, and hopefully that helps your bottom line.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think the Major League Baseball, minor league baseball relationship. We've talked a little bit about some of those details, but Major League Baseball is essentially our governing body now. For a long time, minor league baseball had its own entity. It was its own organization. It was an association of leagues, and it had a separation from Major League Baseball. And so now, basically, when there's something that is a league issue, we report up to Major League Baseball on those issues. And so I think there at first were a lot of concerns, like whether or not the entity of Major League Baseball truly knows all of the nuances of running minor league baseball. But then the flip side is the exciting part, which is that they're a large entity with tons of resources and the ability to share resources and numbers and to pool all of these different entities, a team that's in Eugene, Oregon, a team that's in Modesto, California, a team that's in Erie, Pennsylvania, and be able to scale some of the best things across them. I don't know that minor league baseball as a separate entity before was able to do that, but it would not surprise me if in the very, very near future you're watching minor league games on MLB Network. So I think that there's a lot of things to be excited about, and I do think that Major League Baseball is probably going to advance those timelines quicker than
Absolutely.
that 2030.
Yeah, and as you pass players on to Detroit, you can ask Detroit to pass equipment down to you. How about that?
Well, I tell you, our relationship with the Tigers has been excellent. I think more so than a lot of organizations. We're in communication. Particularly right now, the Tigers over the last few years have struggled on the field in Detroit, but they've been in the process of rebuilding their farm system, and so they have been promoting more the future than in some cases their current players, and so it's not uncommon for the Tigers to have their media outlet send people to Erie to check out how the prospects are doing, to send their own in-house media folks to capture highlights and footage of the players playing in Erie. And I tell you what, that's great. That's great for that's great for Erie. That's great for the SeaWolves brand. It's great for a lot of our business partners too. So it's been a good fit. We expect the Tigers are going to compete at the Major League Baseball or at the Major League level and be a playoff contending team very soon. So things will change a little bit in that dynamic, but it's been a great partnership, and even when they're winning up there, they've always taken good care of us here.
That's a good observation, and a hearty thanks to you, Greg Coleman, president of the Erie SeaWolves, and taking time out of your busy day for this recording. We really appreciate your on-air visit here, and well, let's play ball, right?
You got it, Tom. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, and take care.
I'm Michelle Martin. These days, it seems like just about everybody is choosing sides and doubling down on talking points. Here at NPR, we try to cut through the noise with meaningful and respectful discussions with people from all perspectives, backgrounds, and walks of life. Join the conversation every weekend on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Saturday and Sunday afternoons at 5 on WQLN Radio.
This is Terry Gross, the host of Fresh Air. If you don't know how a sustaining membership works, let me explain. Instead of giving one lump sum, you can spread your support out to a more manageable amount, like $5 or $10 a month. Your monthly contributions automatically come out of your bank account or a credit card, so your membership won't expire. By becoming a sustaining member, you're helping keep your favorite shows on WQLN NPR. It takes just a couple of minutes to set up, and you can do it now by going to WQLN.org. Thank you.
Welcome to We Question and Learn. Today we have a very, very special guest, someone I've been looking forward to talking to for a good while. I want to thank Bill Jackson for being with me on this recording. Bill is the President and Chief Professional Officer of United Way. Welcome, Bill.
Oh, thanks very much, Tom. Appreciate it.
Good to hear you, as they say. So how long have you been with United Way?
I've been here 25 years total, 12 as the president.
Your official title, I think, was Vice President of Finance and Administration. You were named President in 2010. Is that right?
I was just at the tail end of 29, yeah.
Okay, close enough. A lot of things have changed. So let's take a quick snapshot of the way things were before. The United Way had a certain image and methodology of operating. And how would you describe that in your memory?
Well, when I first started here in 1996, we were operating under a model that had been around since our founding in 1914. And basically the idea was to go out into the community, raise money, and then distribute that money to a select group of member nonprofit agencies. And the primary way we raised that money was to make presentations to employees in workplaces and ask them to have a little something deducted from their paycheck every week. Mm-hmm. And if everybody did that, it added up, to a nice sum. And, that worked pretty well, and a lot of good was done. Mm-hmm. But along the way, our board, kind of stepped back and said, that's all well and good, but are we really getting to the root issues, root causes, or are we just putting Band-Aids on things? Mm-hmm. And so then over the, I'd say past 10 to 12 years, we've been working on figuring out how to not Band-Aids on things. And that brings us to where we are today, where we've, first of all, identified the issue that we want to be all about. And many United Ways, and by the way, we're all local organizations. So we're, we raise our money here and that money stays here. We're part of a national organization, but that's more like a trade association. So anyway, many United Ways focus on different issues, some, on hunger, some on homelessness. We looked at the big picture and said, we really want to focus on poverty. Mm-hmm. And as we say in our marketing, we are in the business of crushing poverty. It's been at least 12 years that we were, figuring it out.
So structurally, the United Way is an organization today. Could you describe, obviously, your position, please, and who helps you out in the office there, so to speak?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Again, I see my job as making sure everyone else has what they need to do their jobs. And I'm just mean a desk and a computer and a phone, but a strategic plan, a solid board of directors, good community relationships, that the whole ball of wax. But the folks that actually are, boots on the ground, we have several different areas that we work in. One is, we call it resource development. It's basically finding the money, right? So it's fundraising, it's grant writing, it's ways to bring in the dollars. Mm-hmm. And then we have a second function that we call community impact. And that's where we spend the dollars to improve the community. And we can get into a little bit of the different things we do there, but just to stick to your question. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we have a couple of people that make sure that lights stay on. But we also have an interesting group of employees that is part of our community schools work. And those would be the community school directors who are employed by United Way, but work in the schools. And I think we'll talk about community schools in a little bit, too. Mm-hmm. We've found other ways to raise money besides just workplace contributions, because we now have very specific things that we do. For example, community schools, for example, our Imagination Library that provides free books to children under age 5. Mm-hmm. We can now attract, first of all, donors who didn't give to us before because they really didn't know what we did, because we did so much, it was hard to explain it. Now we've broken it down into bite-sized things you can understand, but also we can now qualify for grants, for example. Because the grantee knows, or the grantor knows specifically where those dollars are being used and understands that we are accountable to that. We've received several grants from the Erie Community Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
We recently received a $2.5 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education, and everything in between.
Now, the Imagination Library, that was in conjunction, if I remember right, is that part of the Dolly Parton group way back?
Yeah, Dolly Parton started the Imagination Library in her hometown in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
And she is the model, which is, again, a brand new age-appropriate book mailed directly to a child's home in their name until they turn 5, and it's and at no cost to the family. It started to expand, and so Dolly made it available for other communities. But the main thing we need people to understand is Dolly doesn't pay for the books.
Mm-hmm.
The books in Erie County are paid for by money we raise. So we get a great deal on them, and we get great books. These aren't just the leftover ones from the bin. These are high quality, age appropriate books. But it's our community who supports the cost of it.
Yeah, brand new books, and I guess it goes on a subscription schedule, so to speak, to families in need.
Any family.
Any family, okay.
Yeah, Dolly was very specific about that, and it's the Dollywood Foundation that actually administers the program.
Mm-hmm.
They are adamant that there can be no income restrictions. Any child who lives within the geography, in other words, in our case, any child who lives in Erie County under the age of 5 can sign up and get a book. And right now, we're sending out about 9,000 books a month, which is about 60%, 60% of all the children under age 5 in Erie County are receiving these books. Our job is to get kids signed up. And so we, provide brochures and our online registrations to make it easy for parents or grandparents or whomever to sign up their kids.
Before we go too far afield, your staff, again, how many folks are at your location, so to speak?
So in our facility here, and we'll talk about our new offices later. I hope.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we currently have 17 staff, and then we also have 11 community school directors out in the school. So we're pushing 30.
Board of directors, how are you set up with that?
We have a fantastic board. We have, I believe it's 27 active board members.
Okay.
We absolutely couldn't do what we do without their support. They have been with us all the way. Every bump in the road they've been supportive of, and I really can't say enough about our board. I just want to say something here.
Sure.
Our board members are listed on our website, so if any of your listeners want to know who's on our board, just go to UnitedWayErie.org, and you can find our board. We became a United Way in 1974, I believe it was. We were founded in 1914 as the Erie Social Service Federation, and then later became the Community Chest and the United Fund and any number of things over those years. But then latched onto the United Way brand in the 70s.
Clarify for me how you made the change from what some people remember as the traditional United Way fundraising mechanism to the good mechanism that you have now.
I can do that. I'll try to keep it short because it is a long, involved story.
No, it's good. Go ahead.
So I mentioned that our board realized that we needed to try to get to root causes and that we wanted to focus on the issue of poverty. And at the time, we were sorting our programs into 3 categories: education, income, and health programs. When I say income, that's like financial stability, those kinds of things. And so we started asking for proposals from agencies to deliver services within those categories that were primarily directed toward lower income clients and constituents. But we wanted them to be achieving community level goals, meaning not just helping 10 people, but helping our entire community get more kids ready for school, more people healthy, those kinds of things. The problem was we really didn't know how to do it that way. We had to invent it because no one was, that we knew of, was doing it the way that we were looking to do. When I say no one, I mean no other United Ways that we spoke with. And so it was kind of fits and starts. We did some things one year and then tweaked it the next. And it really wasn't until we came upon the community school model that we finally got it. And so maybe we could just talk about community schools for a second.
Please do.
Because a community school is not a new school. It's an existing school where we bring in a framework, a model that basically brings in services directly to the school to address the non-academic barriers that children face. So many kids, come with health issues, with hunger issues, with behavioral issues, trauma issues, things going on at home, you name it, that can get in the way of their learning. And so teachers, and by the way, my oldest daughter is an elementary school teacher in Texas, but and she tells me, you know, she can barely have time to teach because she has to deal with all these issues that her kids have. But with the community school model, we bring in a person who works in that school, and their job is to find out what services are needed and then get them delivered, not just to the kids, but to the families in the area, even to neighbors in the area. And so the idea of this is that we're utilizing a concept. It's called collective impact, but it basically means like collaboration on steroids. And there are certain characteristics of it, but what it really means is that everybody's leaving their agenda. When I say everybody, all the participants, all of the providers, the schools, the teachers, everyone's leaving any kind of a personal agenda at the door and they're saying what needs to be done in this school, because every school is different, and so every school develops its own custom plan. What do we need to do here to improve our and the ultimate objective is to improve the academic performance of the children, and the strategy is to remove these we call them barriers to learning, remove those barriers so kids can concentrate on learning. And we found this it's all over the country, this concept, and it's being successful. And so we've not only modeled it after what we've seen elsewhere, but we've adjusted it on our own to the point that we actually have other communities calling us to say, how do you do that?
It astounds me that we even in the United States today have to deal with hunger. That just startles me. And from there, that goes to hygiene. And of course, that goes to health and eyesight and the different things you mentioned as mental health, just transportation to get to school. It just astounds me these things still exist. Yet you're doing your best with good energy to waylay all these needs.
Well, and the other thing that we found with this community school model is that people want to help, and people want to help fund it because it's expensive. You're paying people to be in the schools to do this work. We're also funding certain programming that goes on at the schools, and we have just found an outpouring of support from corporations, from individuals, because again, they understand the need, and they can see that their dollars are going to something very specific. That they can be able to see progress over the years.
And as I heard you mention before, this plants the seed for 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah,
this is a valuable work.
And one of the things that we find appealing, and I guess I should really say that our supporters find appealing, is that the children today are the workforce of tomorrow.
Right.
And, employers tell us that it's difficult to find, qualified people to work. So we're going to help on the front end, that pipeline, make sure kids have a good education. That's a good start.
You mentioned families subsequent, programs involving families, of course, from children to families, obviously.
Sure.
Yeah. Where is your energy in that area?
Well, several things. Of course, each school in the community school model will have certain family events or during the COVID lockdown, they were able to reach out to families and connect them with resources such as food and hygiene and paper products and whatever.
Okay.
But in addition to all of that, we have two primary initiatives. The first is our 211 helpline. That's a phone number a person can call for non-emergency needs in their lives. Like, for example, if you find out that your utilities are going to be turned off or you're going to be evicted or whatever. You have a family member who has substance abuse problems. You can call 211. It's anonymous, and you're connected to what we call a resource navigator. And this person is trained to ask you, the right questions to figure out what it is exactly you need, and then to see what kind of services are out there to help with that. And over the last year, we made over 5,000 referrals to services within Erie County. The second initiative that we fund that again is directed more toward families is our Erie Free Taxes program, which prepares income tax returns for free for moderate to low income families. And as an example, last season we did over 5,000 federal tax returns, and that brought in almost $9 million in refunds to our community, which is a great influx to the community. But think about those 5,200 tax returns where the filer didn't have to pay a fee. to get that done, and
Plus,
it's by IRS-trained volunteer tax preparers.
And that 9 million cycles back and indirectly or even directly alleviates poverty, helps with education. I think I'm preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay. Well, the energy then. I think I'm missing something else here. You mentioned family. You mentioned education. You mentioned hunger. You talked about the community schools. You talked about the Dolly Parton, the Readers program. You're doing much more than supplying books, right? There's other programs. Am I correct?
Yeah, we have an initiative. It's called Raising Readers.
Mm.
It's our local version of what the national campaign for grade level reading.
Mm-hmm.
The objective is to get all kids reading at grade level by the end of third grade.
Mm.
And the reason that's important is that up until that time, kids are being taught how to read. But after that, they're expected to be able to read and comprehend in order to learn, the subject matter. And if they can't read properly, that's where they start to fall off. That's where there's a direct correlation between the percent of children that are reading at grade level by the end of third grade and those who end up dropping out of school, getting involved with the criminal justice system, et cetera. So it's kind of like the linchpin of everything. And so we're looking at basically three primary areas with Raising Readers. The first is school readiness, so that when kids get to kindergarten and first grade, they're where they should be in terms of being able to pick up on what's being taught there.
Mm-hmm.
The second is summer learning, because there's so many kids who in the summertime they don't engage in activities that are intellectually stimulating, and they actually show up at school in September having lost ground. So we call that the summer slide. So we're trying to address that. And the third, which I think is key, is attendance, because you can have the best schools in the world and teachers, but if the kids aren't there, then they aren't going to learn. And so we've been, I think that's the area that we've made the most progress in already. And I just wanted to mention about two things. And I told about the Community Foundation giving us some grants. They gave us one for this area of school attendance. And one of the things we did with that was establish what we call safe routes to schools. And we haven't done it with all, we've just done it with a few, mostly community schools. But Gannon University and their students mapped out routes to schools. Mm-hmm. And then, we, with the assistance of the Blue Coats, we kind of put that into the real world. Okay, here's the route, but is it going through a neighborhood that you probably wouldn't want kids to go through, or is there a dog that's not on a leash, frequently, or whatever, the local knowledge that the Blue Coats would have. And with that, we then put up signs, and actually the city of Erie put up the signs, and we call them walking routes to schools, and it basically just points the way so that kids know, a better way to get to school. But then the second thing, building on that, is we're just implementing something called the walking school bus. And it's just what it sounds like. Basically, kids gather at a stop, but then an adult will walk them to school. And again, the Blue Coats are being behind this in terms of they're the ones that are walking the kids to school, and they're looking to expand to find other volunteers as we develop this and get it going to as many schools as we can. But you take a safe route and then you use a walking school bus, you're going to get more kids showing up for school, and that's the whole point.
And it's visible. It offers safety to family and children. Gets the neighborhood involved, right? Everybody
for
thinks,
sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's great. As we have suffered a little bit this last, I almost want to say 2 years, year and a half. How has the COVID-19 environment affected you?
We talk about the fact that we were kind of built for this. We had no problem saying, okay, this is, our issue now, for now, how do we deal with it? And I will tell you that the community school model was probably our saving grace because, as I said earlier, the community school directors know the families and they know which ones might need a little bit of help trying to get to, where the food is or where the doctor is or whatever.
Yes.
And so having those connections enabled us to keep our work going without having to. We didn't shut down for a minute, and certainly we did a few different things, and some things that we wouldn't normally do. But that was the need at the time. But as I say, when we step back and look at the community school model, we said, wow, thank God we have that. And the teachers are telling us, thank God we have that.
Mm-hmm. Other programs. What you mentioned education, hunger. What in what arena are you operating there? Do you fundraise for food sources? Do you garner food sources? Do you gain volunteers to help alleviate hunger with, say, children?
In terms of hunger, mainly what we do is we are able to refer people to the sources, to the food banks, to the pantries.
Mm-hmm.
Second Harvest actually runs food pantries in several of our schools.
Okay.
So it's really coordinating it. We don't. Hunger is just one of those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that most of our work has to do with more of the behavioral and mental health things and getting kids the help they need there. We got, I mentioned that $2.5 million grant. That was to provide case managers
mm-hmm.
For our first 5 community schools who are connecting kids and families with services that they just weren't connecting with before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, we don't do the work. The analogy I use is this is an orchestra, but we're not playing an instrument. We're the conductor. So we just want to make sure that, we know what we're playing and everyone's in tune and we're making beautiful music together.
Yeah, it's not management. It's not oversight. It's encouraging cooperation. And I'm sure you're a resource for information on it as well. Yeah, there was a program, if I remember right, called Success by 6. Is that still in existence?
No, we actually.
No, that's done? Okay.
I don't say melded that. It's not done, but we melded it into Raising Readers. So Success by 6 was primarily about getting kids ready for school. And so, as I said, our Raising Readers program, one of its 3 components is that. So we just kind of moved it over under Raising Readers.
Well, you embellished it a little bit and expanded it, and it evolved. And as you sit at your desk, with COVID, I'm sure prior to COVID you weren't sitting much at your desk. You were out and about. But what is your favorite project there? Is there something that just hits home for you?
Yeah, and it's community schools because, as I said before, that's what really showed us how to change from the old, traditional model to, we now call ourselves a social impact organization, and it was really. I mean, everything else that I mentioned is part of it, but it was the community school model because that is very complicated. I mean, it's not something that anybody can do. You have to have some expertise and you have to have willing partners, and we do. I mean, this community is coming together like never before, and the community school model is just one way we can see that.
It's an outstanding program. Do the schools participate with you? That's a dumb question. I'm sure they do.
Oh, yeah, they do.
I guess my bigger question is, I believe they do exhibit a great deal of enthusiasm for it. But how does that work? Do they fund their component? You volunteer, fund your? How do you interface with the schools themselves?
Okay, so every community school has what we call a community school leadership team.
Okay.
So that's going to be the principal, maybe the assistant principal, maybe a teacher, maybe a school nurse, maybe a parent, someone from United Way, someone from another agency. Most of our schools have what we call lead agencies, and that is, an organization, like the Achievement Center, Family Services, or whomever.
Yes.
Who we have universities that are lead partners. So they'll have a representative at the table, and that's the group that figures out what should be done, and then the community school director, who's also part of that group, is charged with finding ways to make it happen.
Sounds like it's well organized. Yeah,
it's very organized. It has to be. And I'll say one thing: we would never go into a school if the school wasn't excited about the model, because they do have to work a little bit differently. They have to engage a little bit differently. But so far, we have 11 schools right now. And we're going to be adding 5 more over the next year.
Wow.
And everybody's really entherustic.
It sounds like a good project. Sounds like a successful project.
It's successful, and there's never every day is never the same. But it's the point I guess I'm trying to make is everyone has a passion to make it work, and so we get through the bumps in the road.
And I'm sure the community appreciates it. Before we go too far afield, new news, so to speak. You moved, or you've moved.
Yeah,
right?
We moved.
You moved.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. As of this recording, you've moved. Where are you at, please?
So we are now at 650 East Avenue, which is in the
Mhm.
old Wayne School building,
Oh,
which was one of our first community schools.
oh,
But then the district reorganized, and so it's not a school anymore.
right.
And so the Erie Center for Arts and Technology, which is a very new organization,
Mm-hmm.
bought the building, and we purchased some space on the second floor
Mm-hmm.
because we just saw this as an opportunity. You know, our prior residents, if you will, offices were on 6th Street in Millionaires Row.
Yep.
And, you know, it just didn't feel like we were part of the community that we were trying to serve.
Yes.
And we had an opportunity to sell our building, and we used the proceeds of that sale and a very generous anonymous contribution from a donor
Mm-hmm.
to acquire this space, renovate it, and we just moved in last week, as a matter of fact. Well, as of the time I'm recording
There
this.
you go. Within hours almost.
Yeah, and we're directly across the street from East Middle School, which is one of our community schools. We're very close to McKinley and Edison, which are also community schools. We're in the building with, as I said, the Erie Center for Arts and Technology, which is going to be an education organization. We have the Primary Health Network Clinic.
Yes.
And then also the UPMC Jameson School of Nursing is going to be located here.
Now, you said you own that. Is that like a condominium, or you
Yep.
are apportioned your section of the building? Have you bought that portion?
Yeah, it's a condo arrangement.
It's a condo arrangement. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's very neat because you share some common expenses, parking, building, roofs, etc. And
Sure.
yet
Yeah,
you're essentially located. I
win-win.
think, and it gives you an opportunity to chat with other folks who do great outreach in the community as well.
Well, and we're all kind of doing the same thing, which is building human capital.
Yes. Oh,
You
wow.
know, and I don't mean human capital in the sense that it's, you know, money. I'm talking about, you know, the thing that you get when you have people who have an education, who are bettering themselves, who can do what they want to do with their lives because they have the resources to do it. So we're all part of that.
Hey, it's amazing what discussions can occur in the hallway, so to speak, and someone drops by with an idea or two. That's got to be a lot of fun, actually. Catching up.
And again, you know, we're just here now, so we haven't seen the synergy yet, but we fully expect it.
Oh, with the tenants you mentioned, be prepared for some coffee clutches.
There we go. Yep.
Well, in the last couple of minutes, as you look forward, first of all, a major move, in the right direction geographically, socially, and effectively for the community. Well, what do you think United Way will be like in our community, say, 5 years from now?
You know, we've changed so much that I think we're at a point where now we just need to keep doing what we know how to do now. It's just getting better and better at it. I don't think we have to reinvent ourselves, at least not for the foreseeable future, because we just did it.
Yes.
And we really believe we're on the right track. Our volunteers, our board, our contributors are saying, keep doing what you're doing. And I think we just want to get better and better at it.
In the last minute, you do depend on volunteers. How can they find you?
So volunteers, for the most part, and COVID has kind of gotten in the way of this, and we're not sure how this is going to go because a lot of our volunteers would be doing things in the schools. And so we're kind of on hold right now till we know what that is. So I'll have to get back to you.
That's okay. Gives you some time to, unpack the books and the furniture and get used to your new digs. And congratulations on that. Bill Jackson, this has been a real pleasure catching up with you again. We haven't talked in a long time, and I regret that. But certainly it is a pleasure to catch up with you here on the air on WQLN and We Question and Learn. And thank you very much for taking the time to update us. I'm sure we'll catch up with you during the year here to see how it's going in your new digs, so to speak, and to see how your programs are going. So once again, thank you very much for being on the air here today.
Thank you, Tom. It's always my pleasure.